This playoff season, there's only one place where we'll bet, and that's Fanatic Sportsbook. Yes, they're our presenting sponsor, but it doesn't make sense to bet anywhere else if you're a sports fan. Because when you bet, you earn fan cash, win or lose, which means that your bets get you closer to accumulating fan cash for authentic jerseys, hats, memorabilia, and much more. Winning just hits different with fan cash. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents, call 888-327-5050. New York residents, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Pregame Show. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC. And it is time for our first exit interview of the 2025 NBA playoffs. Maybe the only exit interview we get to do. But for the third straight year, the Knicks advanced to the second round of the NBA playoffs. They defeat the Detroit Pistons in 6 games in thrilling fashion in Game 6. It's why I'm wearing black. We are here for the funeral of the Detroit Pistons here at Knicks Film School. And we will be as respectful as possible. I hope that any Knicks fans that went and invaded the Pistons Pulse last night did the exact same thing. We will find out just how respectful they were in just a second, because joining me for this exit interview after the Knicks defeated the Detroit Pistons, let me see. He is a former D1 Hooper and a proud husband and father of 2 kids. This is the intro that he says every time on the Pistons Pulse, so I'm not saying anything that you haven't already heard. He is also one half of the Game Theory podcast. I guess 1/3 of the Game Theory podcast, because I guess I'm technically part of that now. But he's one of the co-hosts of the Game Theory podcast and also the host of the Pistons Pulse with O2 Omari Sankofa. Bryce Simon, welcome back to Knicks Film School, sir.
What's up, Andrew? How are you doing? Happy to be here. Knicks Film School was in the chat last night a little bit. They gave us the handshake as I was going through the post-game pod. And no, some Knicks fans came over. They did their victory laps, but they were respectful with it. It's fine. I got a little nervous because I didn't want it to get too crazy. We have a very chill comment section. So one time I tuned into a Lakers live, and I was like, "Oh my gosh,
the Wolves!
This is insane." No, it was Lakers fans talking about the Lakers even.
No,
and
I mean, it was a pack of Wolves.
Oh yes, it wasn't Wolves fans. So it was Trevor Lane, and I just like, hey, he was live over on his Lakers podcast, not the front office show, his actual Lakers one.
Laker Nation,
I text him after. I was like, Trevor, this is crazy. I wouldn't be able to follow the comments if that's what the Pistons Pulse chat was like. So words hurt me too much, Andrew, for all of that.
Well, I make sure I say only the nicest things to Bryce, even if I say only the meanest things about the Pistons during the course of a 6 or 7 game series. And my God, what a series we just covered. What a back and forth. One of the closest series by margin of victory in NBA history. I wonder if I'm blanking. It's not the closest in NBA history.
I haven't followed that stuff to know. I feel like the other day I saw a stat that like how many games in a row came down to the final possession. And that was before Game 6 that also came down to the final possession. And so I'm like, it has to be some sort of like, it was just, everything was so close. So many games went right down to the wire. I mean, again, think about the 2 final games at LCA, the final 3 games, all 3 games at LCA. One ends in a turnover. One ends in a missed shot / foul call, non-call, whatever. We don't need to revisit. And then last night ends in another turnover, but all of them in situations where if the turnovers don't happen, if the shots are made, if a call, whatever, Detroit can tie or take the lead. And that's just at LCA, Andrew. Those are just those 3 games. So just an insane series that was a lot of fun.
The 2 games at the Garden that were close, the one on for Game 2, that was a tie game with less than a minute left. And then the same principle applies in Game 5 when that was 95 all when the Pistons took a 2-point lead and the Knicks lost 2 rotation players that may also do a podcast together in the same stretch. So it turned into a war of attrition at a certain point where obviously we went through the whole who's got the more talent, how soon before you get to a Piston when you're going through the best players of the series. But sometimes this just works out that a team has another team's number. And I started to realize that the physicality of the Pistons presented, it just was something the Knicks had not really been prepared to match all year. And it's why I'm thankful that the talent eventually won out, because I was sweating it out during the fourth quarter of last night's game. That's for sure. So I need to get a temperature check of Detroit. I know you're not in Detroit at the moment, but I know you have a better temp check on the vibes in Detroit than I do, for sure. I've narrowed it down to 3 categories, and I want you to tell me how big the slice of each pie is on this category of Pistons fans. So,
okay.
Proud of the season, like how many Pistons fans, what percentage of Pistons fans are proud of this season, which is objectively successful one, are disappointed in a series that they very easily, not just like could be going back to game 7, they could have won this series in 6. And they end up being, devastated by losing 3 games at Little Caesars Arena. And then the furious portion of the fan base of the Ausar Thompson. I combined the brothers' names together. Ausar Thompson and him only playing 22 minutes, him coming out of the game in the fourth quarter after they'd taken the lead, would seem to be a point of consternation with the decisions of how many minutes he would play and when he would play. If you could break down the different pieces of each portion of the fan base, how would you divvy it up?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can divvy it up to equal 100%. Can I cheat that a little bit and give you what percentage of the fan base I think falls into each of those categories, when some members of the fan base will fall into at least 2 of them? I think today I was surprised how much the fan base fell into category 1 of just like, I saw a lot of tweets today of, hey, what a great season. Sucks how it ended, but this team did way beyond. Even my live on Thursday night, I was surprised by the positivity right after a heartbreaking loss at the hands of the Knicks. And so that did take me by surprise. I was expecting to say 50% of the fan base was already in what a successful season mode. And I would say it's closer to 90. Like even the ones who are going to potentially fall into the next 2 categories, I've seen very few that was just overwhelming negative. I mean, very, very few. Now, how many? I've seen more of the Ausar frustration than I have necessarily the loss to the series. You know what I mean? I haven't seen a ton of that, to be honest with you, in terms of we really could have had it, really could have gone to game 7. I would tell you who's Cade and JB were taking as much heat as anybody. Like Cade was taking some heat in the chat last night. JB was taking heat going all the way back to earlier in the series. And then I would say probably at least 50% of the fan base is on the Ausar thing. So not as much with the series as a whole. I think in general, people are happy with the season, but at least 50% of the fan base was unhappy with how Ausar's minutes were used. Specifically, I had some issues with game 6, to be honest.
Well, as someone who also watched it from the Knicks perspective, guess who had a brief sigh of like, or an exhale of, all right, well, they're taking Ausar out, so maybe the Knicks have a shot here to get back in the game. And then obviously he comes back in. The crossover of all crossovers leads to Ausar leaving the screen. But what people don't point out in Knicks land, because we're too busy celebrating the crossover leading to the 3, is that he was 0 for 5 from 3, or just 0 for 5 being guarded by Ausar in the fourth quarter before that. And as Jalen Brunson even said after the game, that when he spoke to Ausar, like, that guy's a tough defender. I said to him, you made me work. It's funny how the progression of a series and how things change over the course of 6 or 7 games. We're 5 games removed of him throwing up 6 fingers after he drew the 6th foul. And now he's like, I respect you as a defender, kid, in his second NBA season.
My experience is sometimes it just takes what Detroit did to the Knicks to kind of quote unquote earn that respect. I think sometimes whenever you're a Pistons team that has a little bit of the reputation of like, they're just really physical and they just play really hard. And maybe that's a little bit of an annoyance to you as an opposing team. And then they come in, it's like, yeah, that's all true. But like, they can also put the ball in the basket. They can like straight up guard you, and they tank you to the brink in essentially every game and truly put a little bit of a scare in you across the board. How can you not come away respectful of what the Pistons did? I'm not saying he had to outwardly show it, but it doesn't surprise me that somebody like Brunson, who I think really understands basketball and, the game and respects the game and probably all the Knicks players. I shouldn't just single out Brunson, but that Brunson would say that. I mean, I think you could see it whenever. I always thought his aggressiveness went up just a little bit whenever Ausar was not there and he just got the Schroeder matchup or Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. And rightfully so. Ausar is an athletic, long, quality defender at his young age.
So while I was making the rounds last night of seeing how the Pistons reaction was, seeing how some of the other Knicks podcast reaction was, obviously I checked out the Pistons pulse. I didn't see the comment that said that the trade Cade comment of whether that was real or not. But when you reference that someone, I hope you're trolling, but if we're bringing up trade Cade Cunningham, I understand that fan is short for fanatic, and after the game is the least rational you're ever going to be when processing sports. But I guess let me try to get away from the emotional side, because I did see a lot of the Ausar stuff and we lost this series because of how JB Bickerstaff played Ausar Thompson, what his numbers were when Ausar, what the Knicks numbers were, and what the Pistons numbers were, what Jalen Brunson's numbers were when Ausar was on the court as opposed to when he was off. From your perspective, you're one of the best people I know when it comes to X's and O's. Like, what is the X's and O's reason why the Knicks ended up winning this series? I guess if you want to even be more specific, why the Pistons lost this series?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, if you want to go to X's and O's, let's stick with Ausar. They switched off of him too easy. Like, what have we talked about before the series and the entire series for the Knicks defensively? What did they actively avoid happening on the defensive end, Andrew? Who did they actively avoid trying to get stuck on Cade Cunningham?
They actively avoided... I get Jalen Brunson.
Yes, Jalen Brunson. Okay. They actively avoided getting Jalen Brunson onto Cade Cunningham. If Jalen Brunson was guarding you, you ran to Cade Cunningham and you tried to set as good a screen as possible on OG Anunoby to try to get Cade free and loose and all of that. Part of the X and O's as well. Cade couldn't take advantage of that by knocking down threes. The way that action is defended, Cade has an opportunity to shoot a three almost every time, wasn't able to knock him down. So what the Knicks did a really good job of was they kept OG or Mikal, whoever they wanted, on Cade for the most part. What I don't think the Pistons always did, even when Ausar was on the court, was the same thing. There's a couple plays that stand out in my mind. Ausar's trying to guard Jalen Brunson full court. Somebody came and set a screen on him, and Ausar eventually switched off. Tim Hardaway Jr. is now on Jalen Brunson to start the possession. There's another one a couple possessions later, same exact thing. It's just like, to me, it's the difference between Ausar and OG navigating screens right now. And that's an area of growth for Ausar, as good as he is at the true point of attack. And so that's one thing there. I also think the Pistons 3-point shooting let him down. I don't know what the overall 3-point shooting was. Cade was awful throughout the entire series. We can say what it is. And Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. just simply weren't consistent. The numbers look better because like Dennis Schroeder made shots, and shot it really well from three. The guys you needed to truly make threes, GMAC, were Cade, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Schroeder. Another X's and O's things, I thought Tibbs /OG /whoever did an incredible job scouting out the Pistons set actions that they showed at the end of the season and taking them away, just completely took them away. And I also thought Tibbs did a really nice job in game 6, switching up the ball screen coverages. I was wrong. Listen, guys, I carry my own receipts. I came into the series telling you the Knicks should do what to Cade Cunningham? Off the opening tip, they should do what, GMAC?
Put OG Anunoby on him.
Yeah, well, they did that. What was the second part, though?
Played drop. Yeah.
But I said put 2 on him.
Oh, put 2 on him is from the beginning. Yeah,
put
2 on from the beginning. Yeah.
That was wrong. They shouldn't. The Pistons figured it out in game 5. I did a whole video breakdown on it. In game 6, they played a little more drop. They switched it up. They were at the level. Then they'd put 2. They kept Cade guessing. They kept the Pistons guessing. And it played out a lot better. I know the Pistons still scored quite a few points, but those are some of the things that... Here's one more. I thought the Knicks played with good pace. In maybe definitely game 6. I had a lot of notes, but I think game 5 they did as well. Even after a made shot, they'd get it in, they'd take advantage of Detroit. Sideline out of bounds. I can vividly remember 2 times a dead ball out of bounds. Detroit's kind of lack of urgency. New York gets it in and they go and they get some easy opportunities or draw a foul or something in those situations.
So the funny thing is that the drop coverage you're talking about and how the Knicks would switch into that at times. During the regular season, it's always been my fear when the Knicks play drop, especially against guys that are good in the mid-range. It appeared to me that the strategy Tibbs was emphasizing for game 6 was like play a high enough drop that if Cade pulls up from 3 and he decides to go 4 of 8, then like tip your cap to him. They earned a game 7. And that was what they were willing to live and die with. It's honestly a similar chess move to Bickerstaff in game 4, saying if Karl-Anthony Towns wants to post up at the wing and like 3-point line extended though, like not deep post up and just drive all day, we'll live with out of control Karl-Anthony Towns drives that are never going to be a pass out or a kick out to someone on the wing. And then just like, this is going to be a field goal attempt. And either he makes it, but he's falling out of bounds and we have a 5-on-4 going the other way, or he misses it and he still fell out of bounds and we're going 5-on-4 the other way, regardless. And it's actually like appreciate the chess moves and that both coaches end up doing. It's interesting seeing what the Piston fan base has kind of done with Bickerstaff over the course of these 6 games. I like to make fun of the challenges, but I also recognize that,
for the record, the challenge last night was bad process, in my opinion.
The second one, sure.
The first one I thought was bad process also. I mean, I thought it was bad process. I think the only way you can challenge that is if you're 100% sure you're going to win it. It didn't put Brunson on the line. It was only the second team foul in that situation. And it was Tim Hardaway Jr. getting called for the foul. Like, quite honestly, who cares if it puts Tim Hardaway Jr. in foul trouble? I don't even know that it did. So what's the reward of that situation? You didn't even have imminent possession. They didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
All they did was take one foul off the board in that situation. Again, it wasn't like they were getting close to the penalty. And side note, Jalen Duren, as well as he played at times, sucks at tip balls for some reason. Twice in the series, he zinged one out of bounds whenever he should have won the tip. But I thought it was bad process, even though he won the challenge, I guess is my point.
I guess it's at the point in the game where, and this was when the Pistons were starting to make their comeback. And where I came from a Knicks perspective, I felt the floodgates starting to collapse in on the Knicks, and Brunson getting calls is a way to step toward momentum. If the entire point of the challenge was let's like get this one off the board and gets the crowd back into it, we won a challenge. We haven't won one since game 1. Like it's really that little victory that could potentially lead to momentum, even if you're right that it wouldn't have actually changed anything about the game, especially since what Jalen Duren is with jump balls.
The funny thing is, I think JB was good with his challenges in the regular season. I'd have to check with O2, but I feel like at one point he was deep into the season and was perfect on his challenges. So I wonder if it was like almost a sense of fool's gold for him, where like all regular season he challenged at the right time, or like he would challenge in the second quarter and he would win it. So then the strategy of time and score and situation didn't come into play. And then you get into the playoffs and it's just like amplified. I don't know what the numbers ended up, but that's my recollection of the regular season challenges.
So I obviously don't know what the Pistons regular season challenges were. I do know who had the best challenge percentage in the NBA was, and that would be Tom Thibodeau and his staff. Apparently the Knicks hired the GOAT when it comes to challenges, every single time they challenge, I'm like, oh, they're going to win this because they don't lose challenges. It's why I don't like to make fun of, or let me rephrase that. I don't like to criticize Knicks fans that like get frustrated with the coach because that happens. I had frustrations with Tom Thibodeau. I've never understood the Knicks fan that's like, why did Tibbs challenge that? That's a stupid challenge. Why doesn't he use his challenge? And it's like, this man is a dinosaur. He is not looking at the replay ever. Yeah. He turns to the guy with the iPad. If he gets a yes, he challenges. If he doesn't, he goes back to coaching basketball. Yeah. That is, I don't think Tibbs, we're all convinced he actually watches film, like has a VCR at the Knicks practice facility. So it's one of those things where I don't think he's ever going off emotion with his challenge. It's always whether or not the guy with the iPad says, yes, you should challenge. You know?
Yeah. I think the dynamics of an NBA coach staff would be really interesting, but I do think that's an important thing to point out. One, I would never sign up for the job. You talk about a stressful position, like that you got to be locked in on every single play and you have about 6 seconds to make a decision. Now, I would assume that every staff has had conversations where it's like, I don't want you to challenge. I don't care. If it's out of bounds off them. We're not challenging that in the first 3 quarters. Yeah. Or if it's our 11th man and it's a foul on him and it's the first of the quarter and it's a non-shooting foul, we're not challenging that, right? Like you have certain parameters around it. But to your point, I've sat close enough at an NBA arena to watch a coach behind the bench calling out like the offensive sets they're about to run or calling out the offense the other team just called and what action is coming. So yeah, it's not the head coach making every single decision. Like I'll say it, you can't, you will drive yourself mad. I was a high school coach, very small school, low stress. I made it high stress because that's what I do. But like I turned over subbing to my assistant coach and it was the best decision I ever made because I would always lose track of. And so I assume I don't think Tibbs is making the subbing decisions throughout the course of a game in general. I assume they have it predetermined. 9-minute mark, this guy subs out, this guy subs in. 12-minute mark, okay, we're starting the second corner with these guys. Obviously, fouls change those things. But yeah, I would guess, like you said, head coach turns, looks, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. Okay, let's play ball.
It's every time I see the tweet, Tibbs, that was a stupid challenge. It's like, he's literally just turning to the guy with the iPad. I don't think it was actually his. Like,
or you do the Jokic where if you're David Adelman and Jokic tells you to challenge, are you actually going to tell Jokic no? Because
the power dynamics. Yeah,
I would probably just do whatever Nikola Jokic tells me to do if I'm the head coach. I'm joking a little bit there.
Well, a little bit, yeah, because there's some truth in every joke, you know. I agree with your X's and O assessment. I think the Knicks. Look, I actually thought Tibbs coached a really good Game 6. I know a lot after Game 5 was made about what the Knicks offense has become. I came on Game Theory and voiced my frustrations with what the Knicks offense has become. I thought they played with a lot of variety, a lot of pace. I know Jalen Brunson took 32 shots. That entire fourth quarter was just like Brunson trying to weather the storm. They had 4 players playing well that night. Shout out to Deuce McBride. Would love for you to show up this entire postseason. But I recognize that the talent eventually won out, and Brunson obviously hit the big shot. I like little decisions here and there. Like Karl-Anthony Towns fouls out, which ends up being a blessing in disguise, Bryce. Because the Knicks end up having Mitchell Robinson on the court for the key defensive stop of Cade when the game is tied. And on the possession previous, Jalen Duren is face guarding Cade. Jalen Duren is face guarding Mitchell Robinson because he's going up for when Brunson goes up for the shot. And it leads to Mikal Bridges' tip-in that ties the game. That probably doesn't happen if it's Karl-Anthony Towns, who's been rough with his box outs and doesn't command the same gravity that Mitchell Robinson does. And then Tibbs takes a true center off the court and puts Deuce out there. And on the play where Asar is crossed over and is taken into space, I will say, the reason there is so much space is because there's not a true center on the court. You actually had to guard all 5 players out there, which again, these are decisions that I think go unnoticed sometimes when you're talking about what the coach is implying to do. It was made by necessity or maybe in case of emergency because Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out But I thought Tibbs coached a good game. And look, I mean, your assessment, I know it's difficult, but I trust your opinion more than anybody. Like, your assessment of JB Bickerstaff after this series. I didn't put this on the rundown and maybe put you on the spot. No, I do want your perspective here.
Yeah. So what I said last night on the podcast was it's okay to nitpick these things. I'm going to come on here, and if we talk about Cade Cunningham, I'm going to talk about the turnovers. I'm going to talk about the 3-point percentage, even though I think he was incredible considering it was his first playoff series and he was going up against an all NBA level defender for most of his possessions. And a Mikal Bridges who like sneakily got better throughout the series on the defensive end. Listen, if JB does this 2 more times, and we continue to have the same conversations, then you do what the Cavs did. And you know what? I'll personally throw him a party on the way out because he did exactly what the organization needed him to do. I don't care if he has playoff flaws right now. The team won 14 games last year and not a whole lot more the 3 years before that. So he changed the culture. He got the best out of this team in the regular season, and he pushed the Knicks team to the brink without a number 2 option. Like, I struggle to overly critique things, even though I think it's fair to look at some things. Like, so it's like the Ausar thing. I thought he played it perfectly in game 5. Perfectly. He said, you know what? Ausar Thompson can't play the same amount of minutes as Jalen Brunson. It's not going to happen, GMAC. He's played over 40 minutes one time in his career. It was his rookie year before the blood clots that took away an entire offseason, the start of this season. He played 30 minutes like 25 times in his entire career. And if you average it out, it was low 30s. So I was like, okay, 30 minutes from Ausar. You start each half with him on Brunson. You give up the end of the first quarter and third quarter. Let Ausar go rest. You set him on the bench until Brunson comes back in the second and fourth quarters. Exactly what he did in game 5. I thought it was perfect. He didn't do it in game 6. It was very confusing to me that he brought Ausar back to start the second quarter when Brunson was on the bench. And then when Brunson came back in, Ausar went back to the bench. The other thing I will say, I don't think any of us know what Asar's like conditioning situation is. We had a commenter who said they saw Ausar using his inhaler on the bench in the fourth quarter. I can't say that I saw that with my own eyes. So I'm just saying that's what somebody commented to us. So when he got taken out, what was it, 3 minutes and some change or something? And I'm sure Knicks fans were going, oh, well, this is kind of nice.
I did. That's for sure. I did.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a strategic thing or if it was we can't play Ausar for the next 3.5 minutes straight. So we're going to get him out now and then get him back in. The challenges were another thing. I wish I could have seen some offensive creativity in some different ways, the way New York took away their initial actions. But overall, man, like I'm not going to sit here and just be like, oh, it's time to upgrade. Like, are you kidding me? Like, they just completely changed the culture of the team. He deserves at least a couple more years. If they continue to flame out in the first round because of these decisions 2 years from now, then sure, let's have the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It's just interesting how quickly the tide turns, especially once the playoffs are part of the calculation.
The goalposts always move in GMAC. It's always moving,
especially in the postseason. I saw it the first year with that Hawks series with Julius. Like, suddenly is Julius the guy? And it's like, do you guys remember the season that we just watched with Julius Randle?
Julius Randle playing pretty good right now.
Not too bad. Not playoff Julius, a positive connotation, if I do say so myself. All right, I have an important question for you.
Okay.
So we work with a gentleman named Sam Vecenie who proclaimed 3 games into the series that Cade Cunningham is the best player in this series.
Okay.
Bryce, who is the best player in the Knicks Pistons series?
I will give it to Jalen Brunson. I will say this, though. I think it's Jalen and Cade, and then I don't think it's even close. Like, after those two. I think it's those two guys. Cat wasn't consistent enough after, the game 2, and then we saw 2 back-to-back good games, and then kind of back-to-back stinkers a little bit from Cat. OG might be the next closest. I don't know what his offensive numbers ended up. The efficiency ended up okay, along with what he did on the defensive end. You know me. I am always giving it to the guy that is the hub of the offense, the engine of the offense. That's taking all the shots, creating everything. Cade Cunningham is better than Jalen Brunson on the defensive end. I don't think you would debate that. But with that said, it's not like Cade was guarding Jalen throughout this series. It wasn't guarding Cat because obviously that's not his matchup. And Cade does struggle off the ball a little bit. Cade's better than Jalen defensively, but offensively, Brunson averaged 32 to Cade's 25. The field goal percentages weren't that far off, but Jalen was so much better from three. He attempted more free throws. He actually was right there in assists and had way fewer turnovers, almost half the amount of turnovers. And like straight up GMAC, even if the numbers offensively were a little closer, even if, with Cade's defense factored in, Brunson had the moment of the series. He had the shots. Cade had his chance, right? This is what's forgotten about game 4. Everybody else will remember the no call in game 4. You know what I remember? Miss mid-range, turnover, miss mid-range. And it doesn't change how I feel about Cade Cunningham. It's just that he had his opportunity to have his moment and he just didn't make the shot. He'll make it next year. I have no doubt. But Jalen Brunson got his moment and he made the shot. And so to me, it's Jalen Brunson, and I don't have any problem saying that. I know some Pistons fans are going to forever be anti-Jalen Brunson because of game 2 and the flopping and all of that. That stuff just doesn't hit with me, so I don't care. And I thought he was incredible. And I thought Cade was unquestionably the second best player in the series, right on his heels, especially when you factor in what Cade does on the boards and on the defensive end.
I agree with you. That's all I got. I agree with you.
Okay, let me put you on the spot. Who was the third best player in the series?
OG Anunoby.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah. I think Josh Hart might be fourth.
I freaking love Josh Hart. I love him so much. I think he just makes momentum plays all the time. He either keeps momentum or kills the other team's momentum. Every once in a while, he makes a mistake. He had a bad turnover in game 6, but it was after a great cut and another great cut and kept an offensive rebound alive and stuff like that. So
could you just speak to the portion of the Knicks fan base that thinks he's a liability? I do also hear the concerns about what he does to the spacing and the Knicks never playing 5 out. With the version that we saw of Deuce McBride, I even recognize playing Deuce more, playing Deuce with having him at the point of attack. It now allows Anunoby and Bridges to be more roamers, which makes it even more deadly on defense. It's just Deuce is a bit small, so I don't know how much he's defending at the point of attack and being effective. What do you say to people that criticize Josh Hart in the Knicks fan base when you're seeing a little bit something different?
I would just say I understand because the idea was this 5 out offense, right?
Right.
And that's not Josh Hart, even though he did shoot 50% from 3 in this series.
Is it only 50? I thought it was closer to 60
on 2 attempts, but yeah. He makes I'll just quickly read my notes. Makes momentum plays, can't say it enough. Ends the third quarter with an offensive rebound putback, followed by lob contest that results in a Pistons turnover. Perfect example. Has the cut off of Jalen Brunson, he got stuck in the mid-range. Detroit doubled him. Hart makes a cut from the weak side, gets a layup to tie the game. Okay, that's just game 6. Okay. Okay, so game 5, I thought people got tired of me saying it, so I just reiterated it. Game 4, Hart with an awesome hustle play early in the game on a Duren offensive rebound that he rips away, leads to transition attempt that he does miss, nails the top of the key 3-point attempt off a cat double, knocks down a second one, momentum changing plays, all caps, misses his previous 2 3-point attempts, and then hits his next one when Detroit has all of the momentum. That's what I mean whenever I say momentum changing plays, rebounding, timely cuts, gets a loose ball off another off the ball cut, another timely cut that led to a Robinson offensive rebound. Finds offensive rebound, finds Anunoby for catch and shoot 3-point to regain the lead. Offensive rebound and put back to end the third quarter. This is a different game. Now, this was game 3. I won't continue, but my notes are just scattered with that stuff, GMAC, throughout this entire series. And maybe this is the coach in me. I just can't help but look. I think every team needs one of those guys. Now, whose fault is it if you're playing offense and don't have 5 out spacing on the final possession of the game? It's not Josh Hart's fault he's in the game and not spacing the floor, that is a Tibbs thing. So if it's that, then it's on Tibbs to manipulate the rotations and the substitutions to when can I maximize Josh Hart? And then when do we need a little more offense? When do we need this spacing to maximize whoever? Okay, now Deuce, you get down there. But I think Josh Hart's a really valuable basketball player.
And I'm glad this series, like I'm not glad Deuce McBride struggled, obviously, but I'm glad that we got a series that reminded everybody of the value of Josh Hart. I thought that was just a welcome thing back into my life. You know what's going to happen now? The Celtics are going to completely not guard him because it's most like the Celtics will put Porzingis on him and they'll literally not, like Detroit soft closed out to him. The Celtics will take it to the extreme and just stand at 8 feet outside the lane and he'll go like 0 for 6 in game 1 and I'll be eating my words here. So this is the difference, I think, in coverages between obviously the difference in the Celtics and the Pistons is different, but to your point about how extreme they'll be, I don't think Josh really needed to hit threes in the Pistons series to be effective.
I would agree with that 100%. So,
like he hit his threes and it was welcome, but as you mentioned, only 2 attempts. I don't think he took more than 4 in a single game in the series. But I look at this Celtics series and how drastic I think it's going to be that they guard him. I think he's going to have to take like 6 or 7 threes. It's going to be like the Sixers series last year where Josh is going to have to go into this series, do all the Josh Hart things, and probably have a couple games where he makes 4 threes for them to even make this competitive, so we'll see.
Yep.
Last thing before we let you officially bid farewell to this Knicks Pistons rivalry that I got to be honest, I have no idea how much of this isn't the Sixers. It's definitely not that, but there's some oomph going into next year.
It's
for
funny.
Sure.
It's funny you said that because I couldn't find the right way to say it in my notes. So I think I ended up not putting it there. And maybe I did, but it's like, it did feel like a rivalry was brewing, and one series doesn't make a rivalry. But these two teams have some interesting regular season games next year that matter in some capacity. Like Detroit is good again, and obviously the Knicks will be good again, and then somehow meet up again in the playoffs. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Like there's a little bit of something brewing between the physicality. I think 2 very electric fan bases, and I say that in a very positive way. Like I know the Knicks fan base is very, they're always there. They're ready to talk about it and be about it. And I love that. And the Pistons fan base is as well. I'm kind of excited for it, especially since we have this relationship, right? Like myself with Knicks Film School and all of that. And you in particular, I'm kind of excited about it because then you can really do crossover content, which I actually really, really enjoy.
I look forward to more crossover content with Bryce as well. More on that in just a second. But as far as the rivalry that is brewing, and I gotta be honest, this also speaks to where the Knicks were for most of this century. When the Hawks series happened, the number 1 team on my can't wait till they play each other next season was the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
We're now 5 years into the Tibbs administration, and I'm like, they're up there with the Cavs and the Pacers and this and that. I'm borrowing some feelings from the 90s when I even talk about the Pacers. I don't hate the Pacers because of last year. I hate them because of Reggie Miller and those teams. Last year's team won because that team, the Knicks, ran out of bodies. And the Heat team from 2 years ago, there was devil magic going on that everybody was going to lose to the Heat until they played Jokic. The Sixers was a little different because that became personal at a certain point. And now that you have the Pistons in the mix and they pushed you to the brink, and for the Knicks fans, I can speak for myself, and I think I do speak for a lot of us. We were happy to survive the Pistons series. You came into this series talking about data collection, and It was such an interesting thing to see, like, hey, even if Cade misses this is like good experience for him to just be taking this, or Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren in the series he had. Who do you feel like you got the most useful information about, most useful data that you collected on in this series?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is Cade Cunningham. I think we know. I was thinking about this today. I'm going to throw it at O2 the next time we record as we get into off-season conversation. I'll throw it at you. This will be interesting.
Okay.
If I told you Cade Cunningham can only improve on one thing next season on the offensive end, either a consistent 3-point shooter, specifically off the dribble, or he lowers his turnovers, which would you choose?
Threes.
I agree. I think it's an easy answer for me as well. And so what I think I found about Cade is he is what we thought he was. He is a real dude that averaged 25, 8 and 8 against the New York Knicks and OG Anunoby. And he did it not even shooting a crazy percentage and an awful percentage from the 3-point line. He created for his teammates. I know he turned it over, and he's at least going to be a neutral defender. I feel very comfortable with this team in Cade Cunningham's hands moving forward. Jalen Duren, I almost feel like I need to go back and rewatch the series with an emphasis on him. I think I found out the most about Ausar Thompson and what he is, because I was terrified what it might look like in a playoff setting. Like, is he completely unplayable because of the offense? And it was rough at times. And I think what I also learned is they may have to eventually decide between Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren. You've been in the game theory group chat enough to know our common line between me and Sam is those two guys are like magnets to the same space on the court. And so my biggest thing, they have to figure that out. I don't think Ausar Thompson is ever, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that in a very near future, Ausar Thompson is a good enough shooter that he has any sort of gravity or people are going to really guard him out there. So can those two guys figure out how to share the floor together? And can Ausar Thompson figure out, like, how often can he tap into the game 5 production in the terms of the finishing, the attacking space, all of those sorts of things? And so that was my biggest thing, is like, what would Ausar look like? The defense was everything I thought it would be, probably better, even though the foul trouble was an issue at times early in the series. But that the offense, I think he can figure it out without the shooting, but it's got to be figured out.
So you did hint at them potentially needing to choose between the two. And I understand that Jalen Duren is extension eligible this offseason, and there may be a team in LA that didn't have to trade everything for Luka Doncic and has stuff left over that may offer a first round pick for Jalen Duren this offseason. Obviously, I brought this up to Sam the other day, but like, do you think they'll actually choose between the two this offseason?
I don't. I don't think so. My guess is they'll slow play this thing this offseason. You didn't get a full offseason of Ausar Thompson, and he missed the first how many ever games of the regular season. You didn't have Jaden Ivey for the last half of the season and into the playoffs. I could very easily see them kind of running it back a little bit with a few minor tweaks. But I think that depends a little bit as well. Like, what do they think Jalen Duren is? And what does Jalen Duren think Jalen Duren is? You know, it's like, what kind of contract does he want? If you're not willing to give that to him, then how far do you want to let that play out? The other thing I will readily admit, they can't get worse at the center position, right? So like this trade, this hypothetical trade with the Lakers, okay, sure, you know, first round pick or whatever. Well, who's going to be the starting center next year then if Jalen Duren is on the Los Angeles Lakers or some other team? Because to me, that's not Isaiah Stewart. I love Isaiah Stewart. I thought he would have been an important piece in this series, but to me, he is perfectly fitted into the role he played this season. And so that's the other thing, is like, you can't take a step back because you trade Jalen Duren for future asset and not have a way to replace him, because obviously he's a valuable center who is productive, if nothing else, in terms of rebounding the basketball, scoring the basketball at times, passing the basketball in game 5, especially, and some of the rim protection he improved with this season.
Was that the thing that you thought the Pistons had discovered, that they could spam all over again, him in the short roll?
Yes. I mean,
okay.
That's why I said that I was wrong, because I didn't know if he would be able to do it over and over. What the Pistons unlocked in game 5 was they ran traditional pick and rolls. Cat wasn't aggressive enough putting 2 on the ball. Cade was able to easily get the ball out of his hands. Duren catches. Josh Hart, they forced to be the low man, so he's rotating. And Jalen Brunson is on the weak side trying to play 2-on-1 versus a floor spacer, even though that floor spacer was shooting 30%, and Ausar Thompson cutting on the baseline. And Jalen Duren can make that decision consistently. He showed it in game 5. And the Knicks took it away in game 6 by not consistently putting 2 on the ball. Sometimes they dropped, sometimes at the level, sometimes a little bit higher drop, like you mentioned. Sometimes they did put 2 on the ball, but it was a little bit more of a surprise. So everything didn't run as smoothly and as much of a flow as what we saw Detroit get into in game 5 with it.
Yeah, after watching, I mean, look, the fact that the Knicks were able to play as poorly as they did defensively in Game 5, and then see how it didn't look as easy. The Ausar cutting baseline, the Ausar in
Correct.
the dunker in general. I thought it took some things away that suddenly made it an easier decision for JB Bickerstaff to take him off the floor, which obviously led to a contested decision amongst the fan base. So
I mean, that's what it was like. What does this look like in the playoffs between these two guys, between Ausar and Duren? And I think we saw some of the positives, but it's like you just mentioned, it's almost like has to be a very constructed situation, because in transition, it's fine. And the Pistons were one of the fastest paced teams in the regular season. But as we all know, the game slows down. There's more half court sets, all of that in the playoffs. And so it's like, as an organization, they have to decide, can Ausar and Duren learn to not occupy the same space? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ausar learns to shoot. Like, that's why Fred Vinson is here, right? Or do we value Ausar more than Jalen Duren? Do we value Jalen Duren more than Ausar? I know which one I would. And do we have to make that decision right now because we don't think they can ever learn to not occupy the same space, or we don't trust Ausar to learn to space the floor? And here's the other thing, though. You can't just replace Duren with any center if this is the decision you make. You have to go replace him with the floor spacing center. And GMAC, those aren't exactly, easily, accessible in the NBA. That's a tough commodity to find at times.
If you want to go get a floor spacing center, you might have to trade your cornerstone power forward that's made multiple all-star teams and your best player's college roommate. And you better make sure that you're ready to actually play 5 out with him. Not that I'm speaking from experience.
So no, it's a great example though. You trade Jalen Duren, whoever, and you bring in Karl-Anthony Towns. Ausar Thompson becomes Josh Hart in the New York Knicks situation of, well, we could play 5 out, but Ausar can't shoot. So they just put their center on Ausar. Now, there's a little difference in athleticism with Ausar. But essentially it ends up becoming the same thing. Also, like, it's all worth it. Like, that commercial is one of my favorite commercials on TV. Like, I love that song. And the Dante commercial.
Oh, the Dante commercial. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that's why it's worth it. Got a good commercial out of it, even though I very much miss Dante DiVincenzo. I'm curious to see what the Pistons look like the next time the Knicks play them. That's for sure. I know I told you a hard 40 and we're at 46 minutes, so I'll get you out of here with one more question. You're a hooper more than anything else, more than a Pistons content creator, more than an analyst for game theory. You're a hooper. Jalen Brunson's crossover. How sick was that?
Listen, I'm trying not to ruin anything here. Let me say this. Jalen Brunson's handle was very impressive in Game 6. And I would love to show the Knicks fan base that. That's
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll get the chance to in the not too distant future, Bryce. Hopefully there's a way we can make that happen. We'll see. I'll talk to the person in charge of Knicks Film School and see if we can make that happen. Bryce, thank you so much for joining me. Where can they find your Substack or maybe some of your other content? Bryce?
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and then the Motor City Hoops Substack. I don't know what you guys will like anymore, but if you haven't, go back and you can read all of the notes. There's, 36 to 40 pages of notes from the series if you have the time. And I don't know how many minutes of video breakdown over there. I will have stuff this offseason as well. I'll put some draft stuff on there, but the Pistons only have a 2nd round pick, so even that's not going to be that much fun. But next year, follow the Substack and read the game notes after the regular season games.
I want to take credit, by the way, that I noticed that now when you plug the Substack, you say it's free. It's free. Because I started just saying, like, hey, it's free. Sign up. It's free to sign up and read Bryce's work.
Well, so, that along with, like, somebody told me they didn't subscribe for a long time because they didn't know it was free. They just assumed it cost. And so, yes, you push this narrative. And so I appreciate it. Also, of course, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. Make sure you're checking that out for all of your playoff coverage. We'll obviously be talking a lot about the Knicks and the Celtics series and hopefully beyond for the Knicks over the next couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bryce. As always, thank you for so much for all the crossovers that we did for this Pistons series.
Yes.
It was good to see you, and I'll be seeing you very soon for Game Theory. So it was good to have you on, Bryce. Thank you for joining me.
Yep,
and thank you Thank you to everybody for joining me for another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dug it, please head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. Like this video. Remember to subscribe. 2 quick announcements. We are doing a watch party on Monday for game 1 between the Knicks and the Boston Celtics. Join us at T-Squared Social. We don't know the time of the game yet, so I'm going to trust that all of you know that you need to get there early whenever the game starts so you can get a seat. So you want to reserve a table on an open table, by all means, please do that. I also want to make a content announcement that we obviously like to break down film here at Knicks Film School. And so we decided to add somebody for the postseason to help us break down some film on the Knicks side of things. And that person is Bryce Simon.
Hey.
He's going to be joining us throughout the entire Celtics series. And I'll say with an asterisk and beyond, if they get past the Celtics, my God, will there be a lot to talk about because something will have happened that I don't foresee happening. But Bryce, it's good you already have a film breakdown in the can that we're going to be airing sometime on Saturday. So I look forward to people seeing that. Bryce, it's good to call you a colleague and not just the game theory world, sir.
Yeah, so like a little peek behind the curtain. I just went to GMAC, when the series was starting to wind down. I said, hey, I'm not going to have Pistons content to create. They don't have a first round pick. The second round is crazy in the NBA draft right now. I would love to produce some video breakdowns for Knicks Film School if you guys will have me. And, he talked to the people over there. They were gracious enough to let me do so. I promise I took the Motor City Hoops logo out of the beginning and the end of the video. So you guys don't have to look at the Detroit stuff. It's all Knicks centric. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about the one. The first one is just kind of a primer. Like, hey, if you haven't seen it, this is what I do. And it's breaking down Jalen Brunson's game 6. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And guys, it's not just like, oh, Jalen Brunson made shots or whatever. It's like, hey, you know how good his passing and creation was in game 6 GMAC? Do you know how sick his eye manipulation was in game 6? 3 different examples where he moves defenders out of the way with his eyes, let alone all of the creation that goes beyond the box score. His off-ball movement, like, hey, here's a really nice shot, but look how they forced a switch off the ball. And then he created an advantage from Cade before he ever touched the ball. That's the stuff you're getting. So hopefully you're a nerd about hoops like me. And if you're not, you may not like it. But if you do and are, I think you'll love it.
Yes, this is the place where nerds go to nerd out on film study and basketball, specifically Knicks basketball. Bryce, I'm very excited to have you as part of our team for the rest of the playoffs. And look, I now just don't have to bug you about the Pistons. Now you can. What's going to be funny is if you actually turn into like a Knicks person and you start to speak Knicks language, and maybe you even come to New York and you'll go into the city.
No,
potentially we'll get you a slice of pizza. We'll get you a authentic piece of Italian mac and cheese. I'm speaking to all of your
I know what you're doing right now. I understand what you're doing. Listen, New York, I'm sure, is a great place with a lot of great people, and God bless all of you.
Never happening. Never happening. Okay. Well, from the middle of the country, we look forward to your breakdowns, Bryce. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you, Bryce. Thank you to now for real this time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. I'll be back with another one tomorrow, previewing the Knicks series against the Celtics. So stay tuned for that. We've got a ton of content already in the can and ready to come to you all throughout the weekend. Until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekends, and we'll speak with you soon. Peace.